Yeah. So that's said. I see what to say. How are you? Thank you. Everybody sign? Yeah. Okay.
All right, I have 7 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Irvin,
Here.
Counselor Hine,
Here.
Counselor Lammerman,
Here.
Counselor Merriday,
Here.
Counselor Settlemeyer,
Here.
Counselor Wilson,
Here.
Mayor Soulsby.
Here. I'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Items to be added to the agenda, I see none. Special presentations, we have the municipal court judge, the Honorable Judge Martin Fisher.
Good evening, members of the council, Mayor Soulsby. I'm here again to give my annual report for the court. And one of the most shocking things that I discovered in preparing for this tonight is how amazingly average this year was. And I'll talk about that in a second. But let me start with the high point for this past year, which is we saw our revenue collections were the highest they've ever been in my time here, which was a nice change. It reflects an upward trend. But I think our last highest year was $59,000, and that was 2015, I think. So we're here at 65,000. In 12 years, that's our highest. So that was encouraging. I talk about in my report why I think that is. The nature of the kinds of violations that generate revenue went up, which is another thing I've talked about the last couple of years that I anticipated as more police came on board and got trained up, we would start seeing this sort of an increase, and that's exactly what's happened. But so when I talk about average, I went back and looked at my reports since 2013. And the numbers of violations cited this year are a little on the high average side of the last 12 years. The amount of fines imposed, a little on the high average side of the last 12 years. The kinds of cases cited in, pretty average for the past 12 years. This was an average year, which is notable because since COVID, when everything just took a nosedive, we've been slowly building back to this, and it seems like we have finally got to our pre-COVID figures across the board. So that's encouraging. The only other, to the extent there's something negative to talk about. It's probably the number of people now who are not reporting for jail sentences. You know, I spent a lot of time last year and at the start of this year informing the council about court attendance rates, because I started really keeping track of that after my experience in October of 24. I think I talked about this last year. I filled in as the municipal court judge in Florence and also as the Florence Justice Court Justice of the Peace. And on the traffic day in Florence, I think 2 people showed up. On the criminal day in Florence, nobody showed up. And on the Justice Court day in Florence, I think 1 person showed up. That started me talking to other judges around the state, and it turns out that's not unusual anymore. And so I as much as I complain about the non-attendance at our courts, especially since the jail closed, we're probably doing at least as well, probably average, if not a little better than what we're seeing in municipal courts around the state. Could we do better? Possibly. There was a day, and I think that this is an interesting observation and something that could be built on, perhaps. I believe it was this July 24th date where 6 people showed up. That's pretty bad. It was 6 out of 20. At the start of court that day, there was like 1 person here. We had, though, in the gallery, a citizen who had been coming and observing for like a month or 2 before that, knew where many of these people were. And after I called the roll and she heard these names, offered to go out to the homeless camp and tell them, hey, you're supposed to be in court. And she did that, and 5 people showed up. So what that told me was, if there was some way to have some liaison who would go tell people, hey, you got a court date, we might see a small increase in the number of people who show up. Other than that, I don't have a lot to say because it was just so incredibly average. So I'm happy to answer any questions and help illuminate any issues that the council might have.
Thank you. I'll take questions in just a moment, but first I want to call out Johanna because I believe that was probably you that did that. Thank you for doing that. That's a great community service. Questions? Councilor Merriday.
Thank you, Mayor. More of an observation. I've been at the homeless camp on Thursday, and I've noticed several times police officers coming and calling the roll. So that's certainly been, I think, implemented by our department.
That probably explains why we do have a trickle of people who show up 9:15, 9:30. I did not know that's why, but that's fantastic because that is clearly making a difference.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else? Councilor Sotomayor.
I'm curious, if a messenger or a volunteer was able to come forward, is it legal to get like addresses? I understand the unhoused camp may be one place, but I imagine there's people with city addresses around. Is that a step that could be done where they could get access to that maybe the night before and go out the day of and hand out things in the morning?
Although that's probably a liability question for the city attorney, I would not feel comfortable giving a citizen another citizen's address that I got off of a citation. I'm not sure that's wrong. I would just not feel comfortable doing it. It is public record. But you need to make a public records request. That would not happen in time. I can say in the past that police have, if they've had the time, gone to like knock on doors, but generally it's just for the people at the homeless camps. Or before we had homeless camps here in town, they just knew where those people were and found them by the tracks or under the bridge. They just knew. I don't know that we'd ever had an officer go to someone's house.
Anyone else? Counselor Wilson.
Okay, so is it your opinion that the vast majority of the people that are not showing up are members of the unhoused community versus the average citizen that just got a ticket doing whatever?
Anecdotally, I would say yes. I haven't actually looked at that to start tracking that kind of information, but I would say that's probably right.
And along those lines, if, and I don't know if this is something that law enforcement, something that could be done where we got a better contact information, so what, send out a reminder. I don't know if that's something that could be done. I have no idea.
That would be a question for the chief,
Yeah,
but that would
so-
be, it's probably a lot of work.
Probably more work than we want to try to tackle.
Chief?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Counselor Wilson. They get a reminder in the form of the citation with a date and time on it. So
Right.
it's almost a redundancy, right? And usually, I mean, if they're issued a citation, whether it be for a traffic violation or a criminal offense, all of that's explained to them at the time they receive that citation. So they're very well educated at the time of receiving it. And it's not like they're being cited to appear for a court date that's like months out. Generally, I think we're like 4 weeks out when we're on the street issuing a citation. It's usually for an appearance date that first initial appearance is going to be within 3 to 4 weeks. So, but we are going out, the officers, one of our sergeants has kind of made it a point now that we've staffed up a little bit, and we do have a sergeant working on the day shift to generally check in with the court clerk on Thursday mornings and say, hey, who's on the roster? Because we know where some of these people are, whether it be down, at 12th Street or somewhere else. If they know where they're at and they're not sitting here and they're supposed to be, they're going to go out and remind them, hey, you've got a court date this morning. Most of them will then make their way down here. I know we've given a ride even occasionally to people, but yeah, it's just, we're doing what we can with what we have. And I think we've, as Judge Fisher said, I think we've made a difference. There's been an impact, but far from perfect. I mean, we haven't solved anything, but we're doing, I think, relatively well for what we have. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? Counselor Settlemeyer.
So you do get the whole list. So do you have a feel for what percent are the unhoused that you're able to go and do? And the people that don't ring that way?
So Mayor, Counselor Settlemeyer, I don't get the list. I have a sergeant that's getting the list. I don't know who's on there. I think what they're looking at is generally trying to come in here because they know, just because we're the ones that deal with the repeat offenders. And what we're trying to do is get those folks that habitually do not show up for court, right? And not the person that maybe got a citation and forgot to show up to court one time. And they come down later and say, oh my gosh, I forgot to show up for court or whatever. We're talking about the people that have 10, 11, 12 failure to appear warrants because they fail to appear every single time. We're trying to at least get them into court so they can get before the judge and at least get some sort of resolution to all of these cases that are out there. And so it's not that we're just going out looking for quote unquote unhoused or homeless people. We're looking for habitual offenders who are failing to appear, whether they are housed or unhoused. If we know where they are, if we know where they live, or we know where they work, the officers can go and do that. But as resources allow too, I mean, we're still, I mean, we're staffed up, but as you guys heard a couple of meetings ago, even at fully staffed, which we're not yet, those numbers are equivalent to 2013 staffing numbers that we're looking at here in 2025. So there is a lot of pull on our resources, but they're trying on Thursdays to at least do something to kind of change this, just repeat habitual offenders of failing to appear.
And I just want to jump in on this last Thursday, in fact. And so I suspect that's what happened. This last Thursday, we had a defendant who had, I don't know, 5 or 6 cases. They're all kind of old. He had in excess of 20 failures to appear. We were just sure we'd never see him. He's on the docket every time. I don't ever see him. He was here. He was not in the best shape because he's not in a good way, but I suspect he was one of those. We know who he is. We know where he is, and he finally woke up enough to actually come here. So it is making a difference.
Counselor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for being here, Judge Fisher. My question is maybe panning back. I guess I'd preface this by saying there's a reason why we have law enforcement. There's a reason why we have laws. There's a reason why policy is being made. We're operating together as a society with trying to maintain some cohesion, protect property rights, peace, tranquility, you know, all the things that we're going towards. How would you characterize how things are in Cottage Grove, you know, from an ideal to what tools you have in your toolbox to affect change? I mean, you are the one that dispenses justice, kind of the end of the road in terms of the non-felony, you know, under a certain level here in Cottage Grove. What effect, how would you characterize the effect that you're able to have in this court? And what would you like, how would you be better equipped to get closer to the goal?
That's a good question. On a couple of fronts. From that larger, like, what am I seeing? What do I think is happening? Prefacing this with, I only know what comes in front of me, right? So if people aren't calling for law enforcement help, but there's a problem, I don't know about that. If people are being cited and they don't show up, I have no idea what they're not showing up for. I don't spend my time going through the files to find the story. If they're being cited someplace else into circuit court because it's a more serious offense, I don't know about that. But so acknowledging that is the starting point. From what I've seen historically, my observation is that things are in fact better. And I know that might not sound intuitive, but I'm not getting rashes of assaults. I'm not getting the bar fights. I'm not getting the menacing, the resisting arrest. I'm not getting the people who are fighting the police. I'm not getting the thefts of kids' bikes and backpacks. What I'm getting are dogs, some thefts, a lot of trespassing. So they're, and you know, it's in the stats. I think you can kind of see disorderly conduct, which again is the nature. There's a number of different things that can constitute that, but the most general are things like unreasonable noise or tumultuous behavior. So we aren't seeing a large number of meaningful property crimes, meaningful person crimes. Those are going down. And they sort of have since shortly after COVID. You know, when people stop going out to bars, that has never seemed to fully pick up, and they're not, again, I haven't had a bar fight in 5 years. So I think that's an improvement. I think we're now looking at a different category of offender, which is the homeless, the unhoused person taking something, shoes, jackets, some food. Not a whole lot of people. We used to get people stealing DVDs and makeup and electronics. We don't see that anymore. So it's a shift in the nature and a reduction in the seriousness. But as a citizen, when you are the victim of any of these things, you know, if someone steals $20 out of your parked car, to you, that's a big violation. And so I'm not saying that people shouldn't feel that, because I've had that happen and I was really upset about it. So, but I think it's getting better. In terms of resources, honestly, just today, I read a story about a thing I didn't know existed. But apparently the Springfield Municipal Court has instituted a treatment court using some grant funding from the state and the federal government, using Emergence as a provider. They are here. The one thing we would, aside from, I need to find out how that works, especially in a court that only has a single judge. One of the things I noticed in reading about it was that the court uses jail as a sanction for when people like test positive for something while in the treatment court. We can't do that. So we lack the hammer part that they have available. So we'd have to get creative with like, how might we handle that? But because they use a provider who's here in town already, that I found encouraging, and is something that I think we're going to need to explore, because that would be fantastic if we had something like that here.
Follow up to that would be, how would you characterize how effective are the community service, what you're able to assign as community service, in terms of recidivism, in terms of, is it effective? How beneficial is it?
I feel like for the people who complete it, we don't see a lot of them coming back. We see some, but not a lot. For the people who don't complete it, they're going to come back. And there's a fair number we get who just never go once or twice. And ultimately, we just have to pull the plug on that and send them to jail, and then hope they show up to jail. But for people who do it and see it through, I think it works.
Anyone else? Counselor Merriday.
Thank you, Mayor. Judge, you mentioned that there was an issue with people not reporting to jail. What would be the next step for folks that don't get to jail? If they're picked up, do they then?
So early on in this process of using the Springfield jail, that was a problem because nothing would happen. After some conversations and some revisions, to our warrants. When we issue a warrant now for a person who failed to show up for jail, the command on the warrant isn't deliver this person to the Cottage Grove court, which is what they would kind of usually say, something like that. It says instead, deliver this person to the Springfield jail, who has in hand the sentencing order, so that when a person is picked up, they are then transported to the jail and start serving the sentence. And that's worked. When it's worked when they get picked up in the area. You know, we get people who get picked up all around the state, and nobody is going to travel up to Astoria to transport the guy down here to spend 3 days in jail for stealing a 6-pack of beer or something. That's just not, that's never going to happen. But if they get picked up in the Eugene, Springfield, Cottage Grove area, they're going to go straight to jail and not pass go, no $200.
Counselor Irvin.
So one of those questions was, in our previous meeting, there was this loophole, where what I would have characterized in my mind as a loophole of being cited, never show up, no accountability. You might get seen again and issued another citation, might be stacking up citations, but there's never a conviction. There's never justice doled out. Is this fix?
No,
That still exists.
that's still the case.
Okay.
Anyone else? Chief.
Right, Mayor, Councilor Irvin, there is something that we've been doing, and I want to make sure that we capture this, because it is worth noting. One of the things that we talked about on some of these cases where we have the biggest issue is we can't take them to Springfield until there's a court commitment, right? And so there's a process to get them there. So that circumstance that you're talking about, Councilor Irvin, is one of the things where we are tracking those folks and are very aware of who those repeat offenders are that just refuse to show up to court, and we can't get them to court. And so if there is a new charge that comes in, misdemeanor, which traditionally the district attorney's office doesn't prosecute because we do those here locally in our municipal court. But what we've been able to do with working with the Lane County District Attorney is if we have some of those more egregious offenders and we arrest them, we will take them and book them into the Lane County Jail, and they will accept them. So we can book them into the Lane County Jail on a new charge. What our process is that there's a couple of deputy district attorneys who do the intake every morning. So what the process that we do with them is the officers then to send an email to them, letting them know the circumstances and also giving them a background on the history and why we would like them to take the case and prosecute it in circuit court. So they've done that. They've adopted, we've had quite a few now where we've done that and we've had successful prosecution. What happens is they end up spending time in jail. And some of them have been 10 days, 14 days or whatnot, just because there's so many charges stacked up. They'll generally take them all and prosecute them all under one case and sentence them to jail. They then do their jail time in the Lane County Jail rather than the Springfield Jail. But their staffing levels are extremely low at the district attorney's office as well. The number of prosecutors that they have is not where it needs to be. So they need to be selective about what cases their prosecutors are spending their time on, because in the district attorney's office, they're prosecuting murder, rape. I mean, the most serious crimes in society. So it is a lot for them to take on every single case, like Judge Fisher was talking about, the person who steals a case of beer. And so if you're trying to prioritize your caseload, but they do have attorneys that do misdemeanor prosecution. So it's been successful to a certain extent. it's unfortunate because sometimes we see those very same people, and I can think of a couple of them off the top of my head, who when they get out of jail after 14 days or 10 days or whatever it is, and we've successfully prosecuted them in circuit court, they come right back here, and within a week, we're citing them again for another, theft or trespass or something else, citing them back into our municipal court, and, wondering if things are going to change, right? Like, are they going to try to show up and deal with it through our process because it's a little bit easier for them, or are they just going to force us into this same scenario again? So, but there have been some instances where I would consider them to be successful prosecutions of misdemeanor cases that we just weren't able to get them into court here, and we were never going to be able to. So they took them, prosecuted them, and we did get some, those cases adjudicated, and they served time in the Lane County Jail.
Thank you. Any other questions for the judge? Do you have anything else, Judge?
I do not. I appreciate the time.
Thank you for your time, Judge Fisher.
Thank you.
Appearance of interested citizens. This is a time for citizen comment. The council will first take comments addressing items not listed on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. The council will then take comments addressing action items on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer, provide their name, identify if they are a city resident, and if so, their ward. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less with council approval. Comments regarding any matter scheduled for a public hearing may be provided only during that hearing. The council will not make any decisions based on public comment. However, staff and council may choose to ask questions or comments following the conclusion of citizen comments. Items not on the agenda. Abby Jacobs.
Hi. I've never been up here before, so I'm sorry if I'm a little bit rough around the edges, but I'm feeling very frustrated and appalled at how the homeless camps have been popping up in our town. I work at Peace Health in the emergency department, and I've been an emergency nurse for 6 years, and I know this population very well, and they are not down on their luck on unfortunate circumstances kind of people for the most part. This is gigantically a drug problem. There is prostitution happening. I deal with these people all the time. I understand what's going on. I think that the fact that we've spent 30 minutes talking about how we're going to reach out more to this community instead of focusing on the families in our town and how we're going to make this better for the people who live here and the people who pay taxes here. I'm very disappointed in how this is. Our police officers I feel like are doing as much as they can to help this problem. But I have to tell you, the new camp that's up on Gateway and 14th, the mom that lives right down the street, she just moved into town a month ago. She has a toddler, and they've had to put up all this sorts of extra security because she has now, I'm going to call them what they are, is bums walking through her yard, a toddler. This is really disappointing. On my way to pick up my kids from school at ACE, I drove up Gateway, I drove down Tyler, I picked up my children, I went to go to the post office, I went down 10th Street, I drove up Main Street to the post office. The only pedestrians that I saw, aside from parents picking up their kids at ACE school, were homeless people. I drove by the Dairy Mart. We drove through the Dairy Mart on the backside, and I had a woman screaming. Clearly, I'm familiar with this person, and screaming. She is consistently meth-induced psychosis at my children and me in the car. I counted 4 camps. There's one on the back of US Bank. There's multiple tents over by the dog park, and there is a camp now up on Gateway and 14th that is very covered by tarps. It's on ODOT property, and so nothing can be done about it from our town. And all the parents and families that I've spoken to in this town are disappointed in how this is working out. And if we're going to sit here and talk about showers and how we're going to get people to their court sites without talking about how the families are not being taken care of in this town, that's a disappointment. The families don't want to go to Corner Park because we're scared about needles because there's constantly baggage in the middle of the park. We expect more. Please help.
Thank you. Jack Jacobs.
Hi, guys. Okay, so I get the same last name as she does. That's my daughter-in-law. And I just moved here two months ago. I live on Tyler, which intersects with Gateway. I walk my dog a lot. And it's interesting that I have a little miniature buck knife that I got to carry with me now because I've been verbally assaulted from that campsite. So I could just throw a lot of rhetorical questions at you folks right now, but I guess this is not the venue for that. But here's a question for you folks. Is Cottage Grove proactive or are they reactive? Are you folks going to wait for something to happen with one of those meth heads, which I came across when we went to that particular park? They're shooting up, eating, whatever they do with the meth, literally from me to that officer away. Abby started screaming at the guy, and the guy was so blanked up, he had no idea. So at what point do you folks do something to be proactive? And some child gets abused, gets hurt, there's a trespassing transgression. There happens to be a dog out there that starts barking, the transient kills the dog, or God help, a little child is out there playing. The guy's so messed up that he doesn't know what he's doing. So instead of the homeless meth head being in the emergency room, you have somebody's daughter or son that's fighting for their life. So this is a rhetorical question. Again, I'm going to repeat this. Are you guys proactive or reactive with the situation? I was at a Eugene bar yesterday watching the Packer game. And so he's going, oh, you're from Cottage Grove. I said, yeah. You know, and anyways, Seattle or Eugene used to have a huge homeless issue. But they got, same as Cresswell. I've been doing some research on this. Cresswell has a 72-hour mandate. You're gone. After 72 hours, the officers say, you're gone. Okay. I saw a Mountaineer, it's a SUV, white one that was camped outside Safeway since the time I moved here, like almost 2 months ago. Sunday, it was actually gone. You know, I had a little tent set up behind it, whatever. So I don't know how we get this on the agenda where I can bring this up again instead of throwing rhetorical, you know, questions at you guys. But, you know, somebody's going to get hurt bad. And we're talking about who's going to go there and advise them because they missed a court date. There's a word, you guys can look it up in the dictionary, in your thesaurus. I'm incredulous right now listening to this. Thanks.
Thank you. Bernie Donner.
Hi, good evening. Bernie Donner, 204 Quincy. And for me, I go across the Chambers Bridge probably once a week. And I thought it was about time that maybe the council could do something about how the state of it. And I went today and took some pictures. These are from today. A lot of graffiti that actually a friend of mine went and repainted on the concrete. The trash cans, you know, they're in the front page here. Person ripped off part of the side here. Second page, you have graffiti on there. there's this little train thing that started to rip off the one of the cables there. And then it goes on the next couple pages. If you see that, just trash constantly, every bay you look. And the last page, and probably for the last, I would guess 5 years plus, are the 2 cameras that never work and the box that's been ripped apart. And it would be nice if even just a little light would blink, something to, and ideally that the cameras would work. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale Gango.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. Welcome back, Christine. Glad to see you back. I'm speaking on behalf of this shower trail you're trying to give to the homeless. The homeless, they get enough from us. Why give away a $60,000 trailer to the homeless? This man behind me here has already threatened to get an army tent and open up another camp over here. And he needs that shower trailer to do it. I live in that neighborhood. I live right across from that thing. I don't need that in my neighborhood. I have to get security doors on my house. I got security cameras on my house. This is costing me out of my pocket. Is he going to reimburse me? I don't think so. Enough of this homeless crap going on over here. We got to stop. That is taxpayer money you want to give away. Please don't do this. The people in that neighborhood don't deserve this anymore. I've spoke to you over and over again about this. Don't be supporting this no more. Start enforcing our laws, get rid of these things. Please, I'm asking. Enough is enough. Our neighbors are scared. The people right there, a lot of kids there, a lot of senior citizens, we don't need to put up with any more of this. I don't know how many times we have to keep talking about this. No more. And he's trying to tell us women and kids are using that shower. No, women and kids have homes. There ain't a home in this town that don't have a bathroom in it with a shower or a tub or something. I don't need no more lies from the man. He does it over and over again. We've all heard him. We've all seen it. Enough is enough. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Bill Christensen. Thank you. Consent agenda? Resolutions and ordinances. Item A, ordinance making certain determinations and findings relating to approving the Cottage Grove Urban Renewal Plan and directing that notice approval be published. Mr. Stewart.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. This evening, we have the second reading for ordinance number 32,000. At the November 10th, 2025 City Council meeting, staff presented a report and a public hearing was held regarding the proposed Cottage Grove Urban Renewal Plan and related ordinance. Following the hearing, council unanimously voted to adopt the ordinance number 3200 approving the Cottage Grove Urban Renewal Plan. The motion also directed that notice of the approval be published and second reading and vote be scheduled for council's next regular meeting, which is this evening. So the recommendation for staff is to hold the second reading and vote.
Ordinance number 2000. 3200. Councilor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the council adopt ordinance 3200.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion with a second. Any discussion? Councilor Lammerman.
So with the urban renewal section, there's the tax increment financing plan. Is that one? No, there's a section was for the amendments. I'll find it again. There's a typo in here. for future amendments. Oh, there it is. Under the urban renewal projects, it says section, amendments can be made in section 9, amendments of this plan, and section 10. Minor little thing, but, and then when is it too late to make adjustments to the projects list?
Mayor and Councilor Lammerman. I don't know that it's ever too late to make adjustments. I mean, it's too late for this plan. But each year, the city staff will bring projects to the council and can go through a process of adjusting, amending the plan. So it can be amended, I would assume, each year, multiple times per year, based on the project list or the direction from the council. This is the basic plan with the parameters and the amount of resources that are available to do the projects.
Okay, one other question real quick then. With the fire district apparatus, it says in fiscal year 2025, being that it has no money already, would we basically borrow $2 million to set aside for the fire department?
Mayor, Councilor, no, that expenditure is programmed to be, I believe, in 2044. And at that point, there's a financing plan. I'm not intimately detailed, but it's a very good chance that the resources will have been generated to pay for that piece of equipment. If not, it'll be put into, there's several stages or steps where we would be taking financing to do projects. But I believe that at that point, we're generating the resources to do the projects and purchase the items that are called out in the plans. So we won't be taking it this year or next year when this is actually, it'll be when it's programmed in the year that it says in the plan.
Okay, yeah, I was just checking because it says in fiscal year 2025.
So that, Councilor, that is what it would be today. And talking to the fire chief, that's the approximate cost to today's dollars as to what it would be. So I'll program, take that back. So it's programmed in here at a cost in today's dollars, and then it's as it moves through the years, it's increased based on the CIP for each year and what the projected cost is in 2040.
Anyone else?
What was the amendment in case I need to adjust my amendment? It was page 1112 or the future amendment to plan.
It would be I'm not sure what page that issue was on, but it was a reference to amendments, section 10 as opposed to section 9. So you could just say with the amendment discussed. Or you could say.
But I'm not seeing the actual issue yet. So no.
Well, it's just in the wrong section. So if somebody went and just looked straight at this, they would go to section 9 when it's actually section 10.
What page is that on in the plan?
8.
Oh, I see it right at the top. This list may be amended as shown in section 9, but it is, okay, very good. I'd like to amend my motion to account for the edit on page 8 under urban renewal projects to amend section 9 to be section 10.
Anyone else? All right, we have a motion with a second. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Merida,
Aye.
Counselor Settlemeyer,
Aye.
Counselor Lammerman,
Aye.
Counselor Urban,
Aye.
Counselor Hein,
Aye.
Counselor Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Soulsby.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Item B, ordinance annexing file number A125 for map tax lots 2103, 04, 21, 01, 200, and 21, 03, 04, 24, 00, 200. Ms. Clemmer.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. On November 10th, 2025, the real property owners of 32399 McKinley Avenue, which is map and tax lot number 21030421012000 and 32402, 32404, 32406, 32408, 32412, 32414, 32416, and 32418 McKinley Avenue, map tax lot 21030424002000, properly initiated the annexation of these two parcels by requesting the use of the expedited procedure allowed under section 18.04.050 of the Cottage Grove Municipal Code, the CGMC. At least 50% of electors on the subject properties consented to this annexation through the expedited procedure. Both properties abut McKinley Avenue, which was recently annexed into city limits. The proposed annexation of the subject properties is in compliance with the standards and criterion of ORS 222.111(1) and the CGMC Chapter 18.04, which governs the requested annexation. Staff recommends that the City Council hold the first vote on the attached ordinance for file A1-25, annexation of map tax lot 21030421012000 and map and tax lot 21030424002000. The ordinance was prepared and has been available for at least 1 week prior to this meeting. This ordinance could be adopted at one meeting and staff recommends approval.
This will be ordinance number 3201.
Counselor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the council adopt ordinance 3201, adopting annexation file number A1-25 for map and tax lots 21-03-04-21-01200 and 21-03-04-24-00200.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Any discussion? All right. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Settlemeyer,
Aye.
Counselor Wilson,
Aye.
Counselor Merriday, Counselor Hink, Counselor Urban,
Aye.
Counselor Lammerman, Mayor Soulsby.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Business from the City Council. Item A, subcommittee appointments for commission and committee interviews. Community Development Manager, Melanie Clem.
Good evening again, Mayor and members of council. I feel like we were just here doing this recently, but I guess that was last year already. On December 31st, the Planning Commission, Historic Preservation Commission, and Urban Forestry Committee will have member positions that have reached the end of their 3-year terms. There are 2 seats set to, set to expire on the Planning Commission, 3 seats set to expire on the Historic Preservation Commission, and 1 seat set to expire on the Urban Forestry Committee. At this time, a subcommittee needs to be created to interview potential candidates for these volunteer positions.
Counselor Urban.
I'd be willing to serve on any or all of these committees as needed.
Anyone else? Counselor Hink.
When do you want to do, when is this all going to take place? What's the timeline?
We would like to try and have them appointed before the beginning of the year.
Counselor Merriday.
I would also volunteer to be available as a subcommittee member.
Counselor Wilson?
I would also be available. And I do have one question. Do we have any candidates?
Yes. So with the planning commission, the 2 seats that are open, 2 have reapplied and then there's 1 new applicant. Historic preservation, there's 3 seats open. 1 out of 3 has reapplied and there's 2 new applicants. And then the urban forestry committee, just the 1 seat that's open, no one has reapplied yet and there's no new applicants.
Anyone else? How many do we need, Ms. Clem? 3. We're good. All right. Thank you.
There's a motion.
Oh, we need to make a motion. Do I have a motion? Counselor Urban?
Would you like a separate motion for each committee? No. Would you like a chair appointed? We have a prepared motion. I'll go ahead and read that. I move that Councilors Merryday, Wilson, and myself form the interview subcommittee for the appointments of members to the vacant seats on the Planning Commission, Historic Preservation Commission, and the Urban Forestry Committee.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And why don't we appoint Counselor Wilson as chair?
I just wanted to say if for some reason one of the 3 can't show up, I'm more than willing to step in if needed.
Item B, continued shower trailer discussion. City Manager, Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the City Council. This is a follow-up to our conversation at our last City Council meeting. As we discussed, back in December of 2020, the city purchased a shower and restroom trailer for $59,929. And then in August of 2021, the city signed an agreement with Community Sharing to use and operate the shower trailer. Now, that agreement expired December 31st of 2022, and it's not been renewed. The shower trailer is currently housed at Community Sharing's office and provides free shower services once a week. City staff and Community Sharing have been discussing options for an updated agreement. And really the 2 scenarios that we discussed was 1, to renew the agreement that we currently have has expired between the city and Community Sharing. And then a second scenario would be to transfer ownership to Community Sharing by a bill of sale. We also asked the council at the last meeting if you had other ideas and other options, and we had a discussion, and there's some different additional ideas were considered. Council also asked a couple of questions for staff to research and bring back to them. They really fell into 3 categories. As council members had asked, what is the cost for a weekly cleaning? As we discussed before, the city provides about 2 to 3 hours of cleaning services per week. And the hourly rate for our janitorial folks is $25.60 per hour. We also had a discussion about insurance. And currently the shower trailer is listed on the city's insurance policy. We pay $366.77 last year to have it listed as an item of equipment on our insurance policy. I'd also reiterate that city staff's concern really regarding the potential liability associated with the current operating scenario is really what brought us to this point of city staff wanting to bring this issue up with the city council. There's also been some question about how do we determine the value of the shower trailer? What's its market value? And, I think as we discussed at our last meeting, it's somewhat problematic. The city, when we usually have surplus assets, we take those to an auction, whether it's a pickup truck or some other piece of equipment that we no longer have a need for after we declare it surplus. I did reach out to the manufacturer who is in Buffalo, New York, and ask them about, how do we go about determining a value for this? And essentially what I was told is that they would work with us the same way that an RV dealership would work with you if you had a 5-year-old fifth wheel that you wanted to sell. You could essentially have them look at it, give you a value for it, and then they'd sell it on consignment from their, from their lot at, and negotiate with the city as to a split for what the sales price would be. So, if the city wanted to go that route, they would have someone actually look at it, come out and physically look at it, and give us an assessed value. And again, then we'd negotiate with them for them to essentially sell it through consignment. I think that addresses the concerns were raised at the last meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Counselor Hike.
On Friday, a couple of us had asked about auction, like sending it to auction like we do for surplus. What does that look like?
Well, generally, the county has an auction, the state does as well. And that's where we send our surplus equipment. We also purchase a lot of equipment there. A lot of times our dear friends at eWeb, will call a pickup surplus after 2 years. And for us, it's brand new. And that's how we've been able to acquire a lot of our equipment.
Counselor Lammerman.
So after speaking with a lot of my constituents in my ward and the citywide, it is a fairly large consensus that the city needs to just auction it off or sell. Don't do that. Sell the shower trailer. So I'd like to see about getting a consensus from council about adding a third scenario of the city regaining control of the shower trailer and then auctioning it off.
Madam Mayor, could I offer something real quick?
Hold on, let's talk about this first. So we can always make that a third option.
Sure. Yeah, as I say, as we discussed at the last council meeting, we brought 2 options to you and openly we're asking if you have additional opportunities, other options you'd like us to consider, please do.
Mr. Flack.
So I guess I'd like to share with you, I quickly went through our books to look at expenses we've made in, capital improvements to operate the trailer, in conjunction with the city. I came up with the number $29,575.56. We have a significant investment into this. And I guess I just want to share with you, if you're going to auction the trailer off, we expect to be reimbursed. Obviously we can debate that, whether we have any standing there or not. But we have a significant investment. You're talking about a small nonprofit in your town that has gone to great lengths to help the city offer a service. And now we have an extensive amount of money that we put into this project. I guess I'm just trying to understand, when it's costing you $400 a year, I just don't understand the challenge. And then if giving it to us, you're worried about being able to use it in an emergency. Well, if you auction it, you also wouldn't be able to use it in an emergency. So I guess I'm just trying to understand the challenge here beyond the politics, because we've been good stewards of this program and have a significant investment in it.
Counselor Hike.
My concern is that we have a financial gap that we need to fill. We're not in a position, unfortunately, where we can just be giving stuff away. And we have other resources should we have an emergency. The Red Cross, right? They're available to us should we need their resources, but this is a significant asset that could help fill in that gap that we have, that we've been talking about for a while now. Thank you.
I would, just my personal opinion, I find it telling that, first of all, I don't believe this was a city responsibility, in my personal opinion, that we had bought the shower trailer. And yet we did. And we have been sharing that with community sharing. And I find it telling that community sharing would now expect the city to reimburse $29,000 instead of being thankful for the city doing this for all these years. And also, it's not just the cost of insurance. We've been paying $300 a month to have your shower trailer, which has been on your property, cleaned. And so that came right out of the city's budget. And now that the contract is up, you're saying that you will clean it.
We would have
But-
all along.
But you weren't. The city was.
The city
And
took
that
that
is,
on
that
of their
is
own
on,
volition.
excuse me, Mr. Flack. That is on record that the city has been sending our custodians there to clean every week. And that's been on the taxpayer dime. So I called Chevron today and found out that they do have showers. It's $12 a shower. I know that community sharing, we have gas cards that we will give to unhoused. I cannot imagine that they
We don't
would,
have any such
that they
program.
would not, in some way, that the community would step up for $12 a shower for Chevron. And I just, this is, in my opinion, this has been not a responsibility of the city. And yet the city did do this, but instead of being grateful, I'm hearing now that community sharing would want the city to reimburse community sharing $29,000. And I find that reprehensible. Personally, hold on, Mr. Flack. And that's how I felt when we said, if we were to gift this to you, would the city that paid for it be able to use it? And you said no. So that was also very telling to me. I don't feel like that's a great partnership. And this is not personal, but I feel like that was hard to hear when I feel like the city has went over and beyond, and a lot of our constituents disagree with the city paying for it in the first place. But I feel like that was some pretty harsh words that you just said.
So my insurance company, when I asked them about that proposal, said that we could not let others take it off the property and operate it without us and have that insurance and have our insurance cover that trailer. That wasn't me saying we
Okay,
wouldn't
well,
do
you-
it.
You said that in the
This
last
was-
meeting. I would just like to say it is my position. I would like to see it go to auction. I don't think that the city should hold this responsibility. I think it's a liability, and I think it needs to go to auction. As Counselor Hink said, we have a gap to fill. And so that's going to be my position tonight. Counselor Wilson?
Just trying to add up the figures. What was the per month that we were paying for?
It was $25 an hour, 2 to 3 hours a week. And I did the math and it was about $300.
Yeah.
A month.
Yeah, there was a cost that I don't think we've acknowledged, which was we had a community director position and another position that were volunteering it. We're running the trailer for how many years?
And that was their choice. The initial plan and my direction was to run it ourselves. That was actually the city's choice to have those folks doing that. We
But
did
that could
not
be
ask-
taken right off the
Sorry-
top of
Sorry,
your
ma'am,
29.
this is my time
Okay.
to talk, please. And we would have absolutely taken on all of those duties. That was actually city staff that decided they were going to operate that and do that. The same thing with the cleaning folks. I was never asked, would you cover cleaning expenses for that trailer, which I absolutely would have throughout. And I guess I'm just, I just am not understanding why this is such a big deal. You have what is it, $58 million budget right now. We have an under $2 million budget. We are going $100,000 in the hole this year ourselves. So there's no golden pot of shower money that's going to come. So showers will end. And I guess if that's your decision, I guess I would hope that there's a basis So to have a trailer available to the public in the event of an ice storm or other emergency, to have, and I'm sorry, I do not lie, families or elderly folks being able to use the ADA portion of that trailer. I mean, there is value to this city in operating this program at a negligible cost to the city. I'm trying to understand. I think by the time you go to auction and this is all resolved, you're not going to see some windfall. This isn't going to be anything but a blip on your budget. Yet for our little agency, this is a huge investment. So we now have a pad for a trailer with power, water, wastewater. We have fencing we've put in. We've put in a shower, we put in a shed so that folks can stay warm or cool in the weather. We had to do a lot consolidation as part of that project. We put in washers and dryers and water heaters so that we could manage this program affordably.
Mr. Fleck, that
and-
is all improvements to your property. That has nothing to do
Which
with
has
us
no
as a
use
city.
to us
Mr.
now.
Fleck, Counselor Hunk, did you have something?
Even if we got $500 for the trailer, it's more than zero. If we had a $60,000 vehicle that we weren't going to use anymore and someone else needed it in the community, we're not going to do that either. We're going to send it to auction. This is it's an asset.
Counselor Lammerman.
One second. I'm doing math, I'm sorry. So basically with the insurance costs and then rough average of the 2 to 3 hours per week for city employees, that came up to roughly $12,000. And then since the contract has been expired since 2022, that's 3 years of non-negotiated anything with community sharing. I mean, technically, we could say that retroactively, they owe us $100 a month for the last 3 years. And I think that came up to $3,600. I think that would be on the low end. We're getting pretty close to eating away at the 29,000. But even with that being said, you had stated, Mr. Fleck, that we have a $56 million budget. The issue with that number is the fact that we're $1.5 million in the hole. No disrespect, but in due part to a large portion of your contribution, because you were previous council. So the last thing I'd want to see us do, and mind you, I had your back up to a certain point tonight. The last thing I would want to do is give away any money when we're trying to cut or bring in another 500,000 just for this budget cycle. So even if we only got $500, that's 500 more that we don't have to come up with or cut from another department.
Counselor Sedermeyer.
I was part of this council when we said we had $10,000 to bring in somebody for a world record. That was wonderfully uplifting and a wonderful thing for this community. I'm sitting here now and I've been to community sharing. I know many of the people who come through community sharing. When I applied to be a counselor, I reminded people, I've been a teacher in this community for 36 years and I've lived here over 50. People aren't dancing in the streets to come to a shower trailer. I ride my bike to community sharing. I ride my bike all over this town. I've never maybe I don't remember ever seeing a needle. I hear needles are strewn all over. There are people in this community that I know from many years who, yes, there's drugs. Well, every once in a while, maybe they find their way over to community sharing and get a shower. I know people who volunteer for the showers. I know that they feel very uplifted, helping out the community, and are very happy to do it. And they do not come away with the idea that they are enabling people. They feel like they are helping them through very, very tough times in their lives. And maybe some of those people will never get out of the very, very tough times in their lives, but they are Cottage Grove people. And, you know, I've gone maybe a week without a shower before. And when you talk about being uplifted for some of the community, I'll bet you that sure feels good. And I bet you that the concerts in the park, when we help our community and feel good about our community there, we're supposed to take care of everybody. That doesn't mean enable everything. I share the frustration. I wish I had the answer, but taking away opportunities for showers I wish I had the numbers of the people that need community sharing to be able to be here. The point that families have houses, I wish was a true statement in this community. I wish that also meant families could live without government subsidies and government help, but that isn't the way our community is. I think giving ownership of the shower trailer to community sharing is a respectful, appropriate step for this council to do. I understand going out on a limb with our liability is something that we can't control, and going forward, I don't think I could say that that is an acceptable expense for us to do. But saying that there's people in this community that would benefit greatly for doing that step is worth my vote to do. I mean, the idea of even $500. Yeah, I think it's worth more than $500 to keep community sharing in the shower business.
Counselor Urban?
Well, I appreciate the time that we've had to discuss this, and I'm hearing the community, I'm hearing the concerns. We are, I think, at the precipice of defining what we're going to do in this town as it relates to managing the city's resources. And there is a shift. There has been since 2020, when was it originally purchased? 21, a significant, whatever the agreements were, whoever was involved in those decisions and, made those deals, they are what they are, but we have spent an enormous amount of money, not just in that arena. And we are in a bad financial situation in large part because of it. And there were a lot of things that were said that, as I see it now, turned out not to be true about how we could have spent that ARPA money. And in talking to a lot of other city people, And we blew an enormous amount of money and got nothing that I can say, nothing long-term that benefited this community. It has made it a better place, has improved the quality of life for the residents as a whole. I don't see it that way. Some were helped, but I would just say a lot of money was wasted. And I'm at a point where I remember saying the very same words. I don't think this is the city's business to be involved in this capacity. If we step out of it, the faith communities can step back into their rightful place in serving people. The other nonprofits that are maybe not religiously based, but that's out of the generosity of the donors, out of people's willful separating with their money to support causes that they believe in. When you do that through the tax base, where it's not up to the individual, they will lose their homes if they don't pay their property tax. You create a real issue of resentment, of anger, and generally people want to see effective solutions, and they don't see the nuance. And I'm painting this picture because I'm trying to get the balance here. I do think that if community sharing wants to buy that trailer, I think it's your prerogative to buy the trailer. From the city's perspective, because it's your business to run whatever programs you have there that are legal. I don't want to get involved in stopping that, but we do have an asset. I would like to see it maximized for the city's as a whole's perspective. That's why I was wanting to entertain a rental operation, just seeing what it takes to rent out any equipment when we've had to rent it as a city. I'm thinking of the generator. I think there was someone that mentioned some of the rental rates. I know there's a lot that goes into that. We're not in the rental business. That puts pressure on city staff, but that was something, if we're going to retain an asset, can we cash flow it? Can it, go back to paying for itself? If not, then you need to cut the asset, get as much as you can for it, and cut your liability. So that's, and if it's at auction and you want to pick it up at auction and it makes sense to run that program and there's funding for it, then so be it. But I think that's the best compromise I can see. It gets the city aligned with its mission to be responsible for its resources. It leaves the nonprofits to do what they're going to do, and be supported by those that believe in that cause. So that's where I'm landing on this right now. But I am interested to hear if any research was done on the viability of renting it.
Councilor Lammerman.
Madam Mayor, so I know there's no recommended motion or anything on this topic, but I'd like to move that the city take control of the shower trailer and auction it off. I don't know if we just need to do that kind of thing, or one of the scenarios by a show of hands, or what we want to do, but
You can make a motion, correct?
well, then I would like to make a motion that the city manager advise the city staff on regaining control and possession of the shower trailer and auction it off at the soonest available date.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Urban.
Can staff address the viability of it being a rental, or managing that, or working with an organization to rent it?
Sure. I mean, if we're going to rent it out, I think we'd want to do some research, first of all, whether or not this is truly something that we can move to multiple locations, and what the setup would be and that sort of thing. It's a little different with something like a generator that, obviously is, fairly a plug and play. I'm really not sure whether or not the shower trailer fits, that particular scenario. What's it take to hook it up to water? What's it need to hook it up to any kind of drainage? I don't know that off the top of my head, what it's designed for, but that's certainly something we can look into.
Counselor Hink?
I'd also be curious with that option if we have the same risk of liability if there were an incident with the shower trailer. Would we be in the same situation?
All right, we have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you.
Motion carries 5-2. All right. Continued council rules discussion. Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. I'm just going to turn this over to the city attorney.
This is a staff thing. This is not a legal thing. I just happen to be somewhat of a drafter. So was ready to walk you through the changes, but let's look at the staff report to see if there's anything important. So as you know, there was a prior draft that was presented to the council as a whole that represented an effort to put some to clarify what's needed or what the council wanted to see in order to meet with members of the public to hear about specific issues called town hall meetings. And in inserting those into the rules, there were some unintended consequences and possibly some stuff that was not expected. Sorry, Mike, I wasn't expecting to do this. And so anyway, we revised. I took the council's direction. We revised and tried to streamline a little bit what we thought we heard from that council discussion and what we had seen in the prior draft. And so if you can turn to the meat of the addition, what we realized in that conversation was that town hall meetings were going to just be special meetings. And so calling them out specifically under special meetings rather than tossing in a new kind of meeting that isn't contemplated in public meetings laws made a lot more sense, to give you some context. But because special meetings are a little amorphous, they can be called at any time for any purpose with more than 24 hours notice. We thought, let's give you some parameters on anybody who wants to hold one of these, what's it going to look like? And I apologize that the way that it printed is almost impossible to read. So I neither have eyes nor a voice. And but that's just because I'm a good Duck fan. So 241 town hall meetings, what we added were some components. So the ability to hear from interested members of the public on one or more topics. We're allowing or calling out specifically that not only the mayor, but a council, staff, or a third-party facilitator could lead those discussions. This is different, and we call out that in rules 7.1 and 7.2, we'll add that exception if this is a route that the council chooses to go. We reflected the prior draft that had said calling it at least for 90 minutes and extending in 30-minute increments, just to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be heard, but that people don't feel like they're going to be there for 4 hours from the get-go. And that's a decision that then continues to be made. 5, we said that that opportunity can provide a general overview of the issue, council members can speak, and then you could also hear from members of the public. I think it's a really good idea to limit voting on substantive issues because the goal was to hear from the public. You don't want to put staff on the spot trying to advise the council, here's how you want to decide, and having somebody make a snap judgment. But we did intentionally say substantive issues so that if a procedural issue comes up, you can still vote. We're not preventing council from voting. We're just saying not on the city business, but you can decide procedural issues like, do we want to continue for 30 minutes? Do we want somebody else to facilitate this meeting? And so any other parameters besides this can either be in the town hall special meeting notice, which again would be more than 24 hours before the meeting, but that gives you a lot of flexibility, or you could announce at the meeting. We're going to have, there's 250 people here. We're going to limit you to 3 minutes each, or, there's 5 people here. We're going to just kind of play around robin and everyone can talk as much as needed. I think this addresses everything that I was hearing that the consensus of the council directed staff. And I don't think there's anything else. There was a goal to not have anybody need to sign up in advance, but most of the procedural rules imposed by the current council rules are for regular meetings. So they already don't apply to special meetings. So I didn't think we needed to add in, specific call out town hall meeting exceptions, because they don't apply anyway, and you can decide what you want to have apply. So anyway, there's my overview. Is there anything?
Sure. I just wanted to note that the city staff's already taken this whole concept of creating town hall meetings to heart. We will be scheduling a town hall meeting. Tentatively, we have it for April 30th, but we haven't got the budget calendar finalized yet, but on the city budget. And we'll, every time I hear that, I always wonder if it's my phone going off. We plan to continue using the town hall format for any specific issues where we feel like it's a good idea to hear from the city citizens. But again, like I said, we're already utilizing this, planning to utilize this for the budget process.
Just one final point that we called out in the council pack, in the agenda item summary, was that this is, again, just one tool that's available to everybody. And we specifically said let's see, where is it? Individual counselors can meet with residents of their wards. I've heard a counselor tonight already talk about how that's occurred. Staff can call a meeting. There can be non-city organizations. So this is just one additional way of bringing citizens together to talk about issues that are important to the city.
Counselor Sotomayor.
I would like to publicly thank you for doing a very nice, concise offering here. It really streamlines ideas of, like you say, if we want to adopt this as a tool, you've made it very doable and clear.
Anyone else have comments? Thank you.
Do we have consensus then of the council to bring this back to you in a form for approval at your next meeting?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Concerns from council. Counselor Lammerman.
Couple quick things. I would have loved if they would have stayed in here, but for those who are still here, unfortunately with the unhoused community, we have to be as a city kind of reactive due to the fact that our hands are fairly well tied by the state, by the county. I'm thankful they brought up Gateway and 17th. I will take a look at that one because that's in my ward. But I too am very unhappy with the cleanliness of our community. The way things are kind of going is not good. But on a different note, some members of the farmers market had reached out to me in regards to Mr. Stewart and Mr. Sauerwein discussing possible change of locations for future farmer market venue. What is that about? Because isn't that kind of why we redid the South 7th Street and the square there was for that intent?
We've had a couple of meetings with the farmers market folks. Good evening, council member and the mayor. And what we talked about was a couple different potential locations, possibly using Bohemia Park. What we've settled on with the farmers market folks is to actually have it go from an alley on one side of Main Street to the alley on the other side of Main Street. Essentially from the alley behind the Armory to the alley on the other side of I was going to say it's the rural organizing and then also the bookstore there. Now we're also working with them on how we're going to have people be able to go back and forth across Main Street. We may use some crossing guards. We may use some volunteers, but that's the new location, at least for this next year. And as we discussed with the folks from the farmers market, this is a new piece of technology that we have, which is our area for having vendors and having a festival street. So, you know, we're going to learn as we go how we're going to utilize that festival street. But at least for this next summer, this is where we'd left it with the farmers market folks. When we talked with them, they're taking this back to their board. We haven't heard back from them yet, but they'll be discussing this with their board.
Okay.
And also specifically to the Gateway Homeless Camp, we can provide a report for the council on this, but city staff has had numerous communications with our friends at ODOT about this. And we are working with them. It is on their property. City staff, both our police and our public works department, have definitely volunteered to help them with that camp. But again, they need to take the lead on it because it's on their property.
Okay, and then so I received an email in regards to comments at the last meeting surrounding the sales of the real property recently and where that money has gone. I don't know if there was something lost in the communication there, but it wasn't solely in regards to the one piece of property in the industrial park. It was also in regards to the Cleveland Street property. I think there's also one more. I was trying to find it through our meetings. But to see where that money has gone and how it was applied to that debt service, the email I got was a little vague in that regard. It just showed what was refinanced and what was currently owed on it, but it didn't show what was applied to it. So if I can get a little bit better clarification on that at whenever you can get to it.
Sure. What we provided the council with today was essentially a 25-year history of the industrial park's finances. What property was purchased, what parcels have sold, and what the current state of the debt on it is. We can certainly provide you with a similar report regarding the Project Sparrow property as well, if you'd like.
I would love the same kind of thing. You definitely don't need to go back 25 years like you did on this one. But yeah, I'd like to see how that money and that revenue was applied towards the debt that's currently owed on it. Because like I had expressed it in the last meeting, it was stated that we were making money on this. So how much of that actually got repaid towards that debt, I'd like to know.
Well, the money that we've received from sales of the parcels have been applied to the debt. If you look at the remaining balance on the debt and then look at the value that we've put on the 3 remaining parcels, you can definitely see that the city would, I won't say turn a profit, but we will pay off the debt and still have money remaining. With the Project Sparrow property, to your point, I don't think we'll have to go back 25 years, but we will have to go back to the date that we purchased the property and show what's happened to it since and what we're anticipating in the future. As you know, with the Project Sparrow property, the residential portion, there's 3 pieces to it. We're working with a group on the multifamily units. We're currently working with Hayden Homes on the single family, and we're at this point retaining one other parcel for low-income housing, potentially working with Homes for Good or another group. But we can certainly give you, as I said, from the date we purchased the property, what the current status is, just a similar report to the one we gave you on the industrial park.
And then one more item, the audit. Where are we at with the audit?
Well, as we've previously discussed, we'll be doing the 2022-2023 audit at the first meeting in January. And then at the second meeting in January, we'll be giving you we're calling it, the second quarterly update for this year's budget. But we'll also be doing a much more deep dive into the last 3-4 years city finances. We've essentially gone back and recreated the books for those years. We're hopeful that we're going to be able to get you the second audit that's due by May of this next year. And then we'll be able to get the final audit after that. But we're definitely moving toward that. I said, you'll have the first audit at the first meeting in January.
Thank you.
Counselor Wilson.
Okay. There has been a noted increase in the use of electric bicycles, scooters, the tilt boards, electric powered skateboards, and it's becoming a bit of a safety issue. I've nearly gotten ran over myself. Mr. Sauerwein related a incident in front of his house in which guests that were visiting him nearly got plowed into over the weekend. They don't seem to be interested in being very safe amongst the community. It seems like less and less people are pedaling bicycles, the present company accepted. And there seems to be a somewhat disregard for the safety of others. I see this as something that can be addressed and possibly even turned into not necessarily a revenue generating opportunity, but a community safety education opportunity. There was a transportation safety plan that was adopted last year, 2024, I believe, that talked about having bike routes, walking paths, things like that. I'm not sure. Bicycle pedestrian plan. And I would assume that that has to, would incorporate creating bike lanes. I wasn't here during the process, so that would be something that would have to be looked into. But one of the things that I've noted, and talking to Mr. Sauerwein, he said he had conversations with Chief Chase about the difficulty in enforcing some of the safety laws. I know that there are currently helmet laws for folks under ages, 16 and under, for utilizing safe helmet laws. And then with motorcycles, of course, helmet laws are in place. This is a category of vehicle that is a motorized vehicle, but is not a motorcycle. It is considered a bicycle or a skateboard. And then there isn't any helmet law requirements that I could see in ORS for skateboards. It was just strictly around bicycles. There is a significant increase in more speed you have, the more chance of injury. Head injuries are difficult to overcome. I happen to know a few people that have had some serious accidents in which head injuries have occurred, and it's a lifetime of recovery. So it is a concern that I have for the general public. My thought is that if we have a consensus to have city attorney possibly look into wording of a city code regarding the use of motorized bicycles, scooters, tilt boards, skateboards, that we require, and again, it would be difficult to enforce, but it would be more an opportunity to educate that they require safety equipment, helmets for any age on the use of ones that are motorized, electrically powered. However we want to word that gets that across, because they do go quite fast. And I know that some of the marketing things that I've seen on the electric bicycles is 36 miles an hour in there. And you crash at that speed without any kind of safety equipment, that's going to cause a problem.
Counselor Settlemyer.
I think you bring up a good point, but I'm pretty sure it's not unique to our community. So it might be nice to see what's out there and maybe bring it back and just say, can we copycat this or something? And or perhaps is that something the student group might be willing to take a look at? I mean, that seems like something wonderful to include them in. Can they bring something to city council, you know, and let us see if it makes sense?
Settlemyer or Councilman Settlemyer? Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying we need to reinvent the wheel. If there's something out there already, that's kind of, I was looking for is, you know, consensus to have staff look into what's out there as far as potential rules that could be adopted. The other thing that I was looking into was that we do currently through our police force have a voluntary registration for bicycles. I think it's just bicycles that's included in, which helps with the potential return of a theft item. You know, if somebody gets their bike stolen, it's registered with the city. If somebody wants to come in and voluntarily register their bike, it's a potential of getting it back. I would suggest that it be something that is, at this point, it's no cost to have your bicycle registered. That takes up some, you know, staff time, and there may be some expense there, and because I think there's tags that are given out for that, that we charge a small fee for that to help recoup some of that cost, and that the motorized ones, that it be a mandatory registration for it. Again, that's would accomplish the possibility of, because I think they would be more inclined to be stolen than their standard bicycle, or and that, you know, could facilitate return of a potentially stolen item, but it could also bring in a little bit of revenue to possibly help fund striping of bike lanes and any type of traffic control devices.
All right, we can definitely look into that, see if there's any cities.
My two related questions. So just a reassurance that were I to look for ordinances, I would not reinvent the wheel. I will definitely give you something that seems to be working in other communities or a couple options. But I was curious, first, do we have a consensus? And second, I liked the engagement question. So I didn't hear a response to that, and I don't want to step on any toes, but I'm happy to bring something back if that's the will of the council.
So I have to admit, I have a knee-jerk reaction to this, which is, if you're willing to sacrifice liberty for safety, you deserve neither. That's just an operating principle for me. But I have an open mind and I can be convinced. But my calculus is going to wait on liberty. So I would like to see data from states that don't have restrictions on helmet laws. I mean, I know head injuries. Those are like the only ones I get. But we'd have to bear out the proof that it makes real sense in our community to do that. and that it couldn't be otherwise circumvented by education, by, you know, enforcing that, you know, you're personally responsible for your decisions, and that's your head. You're going to live with that and your family, and you should have those conversations together. But I certainly don't want to be pulled over for not wearing a helmet at some point. That's my choice, and I don't want to pay a fee, and I don't want to be required to. But I do like the programs where, you know, we've, like I mentioned, the police have come out to our skate park events and handed out safety equipment while it's been donated. I think that's something we should do with encouragement, you know, tell my personal anecdote stories about it just doesn't matter where you are or when, but you can get really hurt. So make good choices. But I also really don't like the principle of laws, ordinances, or anything that are not going to get enforced. Let's start taking those off the books if we're not enforcing, not putting more on. But I understand the sentiment. I agree that we do want a healthy and safer community. I just don't want to do it necessarily by mandate if we don't have to.
Counselor Settlemyer.
I liked your idea that this was meant to be an education thing, and that's why I recommended coming through with the student group and let them take it back to the school and, you know, work that a ways and come back with what is the word from them, and, you know, give them a little bit of power in this. And I think maybe we'll be educated as well as them as we go.
Counselor Wilson.
Yeah, I agree on that. I'd like to see the student involvement in it. Absolutely. They're the vast majority of the people that are going to be utilizing those type of vehicles. And so, although I know many people that are older than myself that use electric bikes, and you know, they're not going to be doing the scooters so much or the tilt boards, but that would be more along the line of the student population. And so, you know, and if we take an educational moving forward as an involuntary, you know, compliance with a suggested course of action, and that's the way we end up going, I'm perfectly good with that. This was just a starting point.
Okay, so why don't we start there? Start with the students. So Counselor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Counselor Wilson, I got from your opening statement that one of the concerns you had was the users of these devices not obeying the traffic laws and being a hazard for people, not the user, but the innocent bystander. So I didn't hear that point addressed in our discussion.
Counselor Lammerman.
The chief just sent out an email on ODOT's regulations on some of these items, like the e-skateboards. There's no it's not defined in the Oregon Vehicle Code. Helmets are required for anyone under the age of 16. They don't have the fully electric bicycles, like the little miniature motorcycle type bicycles, but they do have e-assisted bikes. Must be 16 or older to operate. Protective headgear is recommended unless doing so violates religious beliefs. May not operate on sidewalks. Approved lighting must be used when operating under limited visibility. Apparently the fully electric bicycles just aren't well known enough yet for them to regulate. But it sounds like the rules are already there. Whether or not they follow them, that's up to them. Whether or not they're enforced is up to them. But I know growing up as a kid when they first enacted that, I guess you can call me a vigilante bicyclist. I was all about riding the BMX bikes and dirt jumps and all that fun stuff. And when they first came out with them, I said, oh, heck no, that looks wrong, for a better word, but yeah. The rules are already there, plain and simple.
Well, I want to acknowledge the passing of our police dog, Sabrina. Sorry for your guys' loss, and she'll be missed. She was a sweet pup. And on a happier note, last weekend, Lori Pittenger Dye organized a food drive in the parking lot of Safeway, and South Lane School District brought in one of their large buses, and every single seat the community filled. It was double bagged, and so that was great. The swim team, Key Club, and the leadership students manned it. And so I just wanted to say a nice shout out to our community for stepping up for that, and for Lori Pittenger Dye for organizing that. Thank you. And remind you all that, again, that Christmas in Cottage Grove is December 6th, and the tree lighting is around 5:45 typically. And everyone wants to show up there. They're going to have soup, rolls in the armory. There's going to be Santa's workshop. There's going to be cookie decorating. It should be a really fun event. So hope everyone can join us. Counselor Wilson.
I did have one more thing, on a much nicer note. And I mentioned this at the agenda meeting, but for the general public, the cross-country teams for Cottage Grove High School participated in state meet and came back with, I believe it was the boys finished 4th and the girls finished 5th. So good turnout and showing by the local kids in the meet.
Counselor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be brief here. For concerns of council, I am concerned with the general economic viability of Cottage Grove. I think we took a step tonight in passing the Urban Renewal District plan. I have high hopes, but I also understand that there's some risk associated with that, and the projects have to be well plotted out. It has to be aimed at adding as rapidly as is sustainably. There's integratable into the community, new tax revenue for development, but spanning and spreading out from that, just looking at our region where we have probably one of the greatest, certainly in the US, but not the world, timber resources in our backyard. Lane County has so much available timber, and I do think that it is underutilized, that we as municipalities in this region, in this county, I would like to see us working together to better understand the issue as a council, to hear, multiple sides of why are we where we are, what are we leaving on the table, what are the barriers to better leveraging, are we already maximum leverage of this, so that we can advocate for the optimal usage of the resource in our county and in this state. I think it has a long-term play in jobs. I am an advocate for single earner family wage jobs. That's the long-term, medium or immediate goal for Cottage Grove. And I think we could advocate if there's consensus at that level for our town. And that's going to be part of what drives our future. It's not the only place to put eggs in, the only basket to put eggs in, but it's seems like low-hanging fruit. It's huge. It's been leveraged before, and we need to revisit the reasons why it hasn't. I understand it being largely at a federal level, but I don't know why we can't advocate at a federal level if it is to the benefit of our citizens. I want to also address, so there has been a divesting over the last couple years of city direct resource into addressing the homeless populations as it relates to how it affects use of public spaces. We are bound by state law on the limitations of what can be done in terms of enforcement, in terms of use of public spaces. And I think there's more work for the city to do there. I think that we also want to, I don't think we want to necessarily fund in large part unless there's a return on investment that we can really see that would benefit, but look at models for welcoming in that would actually, if somebody is down and out and wants to reset, and a number of conditions can work towards becoming a net positive benefit producing and being able to be, a contributing member to society. I think there's models where we've got, call them a social enterprise, call them something else, where people are laboring and the fruits of their labor are contributing and they're doing well. I visited for the second time.
So Irvin, I'm just going to do a quick time check. It's 8:59, 9 o'clock right now. Are we in consensus to continue for another 15? Okay. Well, I mean, it's still sitting.
Yep. So maybe I'll shorten it up here. We think as setting our council goals, we agreed that we are going to revisit what the approach is actually going to be. It ought not be the negative space. We ought to be intentional and forward with everything that we're doing. While we're restricting some things to with the aim of ensuring a better quality of life, we need to be thoughtful about our approach and provide good role modeling, good direction about here's your way up and out. Here's what the nonprofit world provides, but really just be conscious about those decisions. So I'm going to advocate for that again. Those are things like, how are we going to use the Highway 99 site? What are we going to do at Project Sparrow and that carve out that's been identified? What are we going to do with the Douglas site? What are we going to do with Trailhead Park and the 12th Street site? We're going to move forward, and I just want all of that to be discussed in concert with it, so that, and we can have our town halls, we can do whatever we need to do it. So I just want to place that there. I appreciate people coming to share their perspectives. And that's it thanks.
Councilor Merryday.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Irvin. That was also my message that I was formulating, hearing the citizens' concerns and working with the unhoused myself, knowing that we are in a kind of a holding pattern. We labeled it a work in progress, and I think we do need to solidify and get good input and other direction to make a step forward, because what we have now is not acceptable on any level. So I'm glad that we're embracing that goal of ours to readdress our unhoused situation in our community and find a way forward. Thank you.
Report from the city manager.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. I will be very brief. The only item I wanted to bring up is, I think many of you will remember that back in 2022, the city hosted the athletes from Botswana, and we have another opportunity to do something similar. The World Under 20 Track and Field Championships are going to be at Hayward Field, August 5th through 9th. And we've already reached out to the folks from Botswana and also the folks from Travel Lane County and told them that we are interested in perhaps hosting another team in Cottage Grove during this event. And we've also talked with Travel Lane County about the possibility of hosting a team during the Olympics for the 2028 Olympics. You may think we're a little ways from Los Angeles, but there are teams that are going to be looking for places to work out and practice before the Olympics. So more to come on this.
Thank you. Report from City Attorney.
Just turn that off on me. All I have to say is, because no one else has said it, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm very grateful that I get to assist your community. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So if there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.